Welcome everybody. I'm Craig Peterson, UCC Cooperative Purchasing Director. And today we have Jake Ladashow.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
With SysCloud joining us, and he's going to provide a demo of SysCloud. And I'll let him kind of kick everything off and explain what SysCloud is. So thanks, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. So quite a few months ago, actually a year and a half ago, Craig and I had connected specifically about backup, about covering it for a lot of the districts and coordinating some kind of cooperative, and then COVID. And so about a year and a half later, we reconnected, thanks to him reaching out to us again. And we've come up with a pricing metric that definitely helps a lot of the smaller schools and the larger schools based on a discount that we've come up with for any 3-year agreements that are purchased, which is basically the standard of what we like to do with any purchasing cooperative that we've worked with. A lot of them in California. This is definitely our first and largest cooperative, especially considering it's a statewide opportunity for Nebraska, from what I understand. But yeah, any questions on that or for any details, just feel free to ask Craig or myself, and we can definitely get you the pricing sheet. I just figured I'd say that first to let you know that this is something that I think that from our perspectives has been more and more of a need in the space of living and breathing every day in Google Workspace, whether it's sometimes we're remote, sometimes we're not, but having a singular place where we can collaborate, work on documents, have communications be seamless essentially. And then also considering like, okay, all that data lives there. How do we create a solid backup for it that's not reliant on the same company that we're leveraging to use the solution, right? In my opinion, backing up Google to Google seems to me as though you're backing up your computer's hard drive to your computer's hard drive, right, to itself. So removing the need to only rely on a single entity and bridging the gap with AWS, which is where we house all of our infrastructure, where we back up all of your data, and everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. So all along the way in the process, you have encrypted protection of your data. That's what we try to provide. It's insurance on leveraging a third-party cloud application with all of your data, and ensuring that if something goes wrong in that environment, you will have the ability to recover, access, and eventually get everything back up and running just as it was if there was any type of situation. Some of the main things we see, right, are user error. Someone leaves, gets angry, deletes everything. Minor ransomware attacks and major ransomware attacks alike. Not as often with the ransomware attacks, but like I always say, where the data goes or migrates to over a long enough period of time, that's where the target will be. For a long time, it's been desktops and local servers. I believe that Google will start to be attacked in more and more creative ways, either getting into individual accounts or basically, attacking Google directly, which, sounds far-fetched, but people have done it. Things have shut down. So this is where SysCloud comes into play as, the insurance policy in your cloud data. And you can still see my screen. Okay, Craig, right? That's coming through.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start the walkthrough. Basically, where we live is right in your Google dashboard, or again, if you have Office 365, right in your Office 365 Apps launcher as well. Mainly, you'd go to the Apps launcher, scroll down, and you would click on SysCloud Security and Backup. What this will lead you to, specifically from a backup perspective, if we have only that turned on, would be the dashboard, which will show you a high-level overview on a per domain basis, or if you were to search for an individual username, you could do based on a individual user just by typing the first few letters of their email ID, and that would eventually pull up their specific category. Hold on one second. There we go. So there's Bruce's information. But if we were to just leverage a specific domain, you could just drop down, click on that domain, and it would single that off. If you did have Office 365 and G Suite, they would show up here as well. So it would be Google Workspace, and then just beneath that, it would be Office 365 and list the domains beneath that. So all seamless, all in a single pane of glass. And then you're able to see, of course, what's going on in the environment. Everything from just current usage statistics to health and status of backups, restores, and exports alike, calendar of how things have gone, anything that may need attention, any permanent or temporary errors, usually based on API connections, or sometime we disconnect because someone may have removed us accidentally. But either way, we like to be transparent about what's going on. The recent activity section at the bottom is probably my favorite, because then this allows you as an administrator to give responsibilities and share responsibilities, or even share it out with individual end users. So if you wanted to give a certain subset of end users end user access to their own backups, you could do that and still have a track and trace on what exactly they're doing if they're coming into the product. So if anything goes wrong, or they use it and say, hey, this didn't work, XYZ, you can go and see exactly what actions were taken. Same thing from an administrator perspective. So if you were to give access to other administrators and just wanted to have the ability to have accountability in the product, everything that happens is recorded. We don't use this. This is simply just to return back to you to say, hey, here's what's been going on in the environment. So a real life situation, someone loses a couple of files, folders, or there's a ransomware attack on someone's individual account. As small the issue, as big as the issue, this is probably how you'd fix it. You would come into archives and restore. This would be your list of current users. So you'd be able to search by username right at the top, immediately begin to pull up that email ID. You would see, okay, hey, this is an active user. Here's the applications we're backing up for them, the total storage amount, most recent backup, progress, and then of course, whether it's active in here in our solution. You get into their account by clicking on their email ID. And what this will do is pull up in a tabularized format, things like mail, drive, contacts, calendars, and sites. All right. Looks like I just need a moment. I apologize. So let me see if I can jump to that section here while that's failing to load on me. If you give me just one moment. We do have a YouTube video, which does show some of the screenshots. Okay. And so here we go. So in this section right here, basically what you're going to have is the mail in the top left in a tabularized format, drive, contacts, calendars, and sites. Each of these will be clickable in the format that you'll have access to as well. All the labels would be on the left-hand side, the most recent emails on the right, searchability via the metadata in the top right, trying to make it as similar a format to how you see it in Google as possible. Restoration, export, and export to PST are 3 different options. You can restore by either clicking a couple of individual files, labels, or restoring an entire account. From what I'm told, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, if I do need to put data back into Drive or into Mail and the emails or the files still exist, we will replace them with whatever versions you are putting back. But you can, restore in parallel as well. All you'd have to do is either create a new label or a new folder, and it would essentially create copies of the latest backups to put back in there. And then you could delete, share, reorganize as you need to. So there's 2 different ways that we can do those type of restores. For drastic situations, especially in things like Drive. So when you go into a Drive document here, what I would do is, probably delete out what's in Drive if there's something missing or something so corrupted, or everything is in such a mess that it's just would be so difficult to restore and move piece by piece, but rather take the previous day's structure, because everything is point in time in Drive and Shared Drive. So let's say, something happened yesterday and you wanted to go back to the day before. You pull up, 2 days ago's backup. You would restore, maybe those folders and the subsequent folder structures that you wanted to put back in place. But before that, I would suggest just deleting out what you don't want there. It makes it very easy just to put things back the way it was without, worrying about a potential merge of extra things or worrying about everything being all over the place. So here is Mail live as well. So now I can actually drop down on the search capabilities. So in Mail, subject, send receive date from to CC BCC label, being able to export selected mails or labels, like I'd mentioned. Here's PST and Mbox options. I think PST, some people like to use it because then they can have it locally and open it in Thunderbird or Outlook a little bit easier based on the file format instead of EML. Restoration is as simple as, right, all selected label or mail, and then you can create, like I said, that new label, so it won't just write over the emails. But if you wanted it to write over the emails, you could just uncheck create a new label and it'll put everything back where we found it in a replacement fashion. So with Drive, here's where it gets a little interesting. So here's where we have the snapshots, right? So right now we're looking from 12.7 to 12.7. But if we wanted to, what we would do is just click on 12.7 and move that back a little bit. So if we were to take this back, like let's say to last Wednesday, and we know that maybe something happened over the weekend, but we know Wednesday snapshot was looking good, we can replace anything and everything that we needed in shared drives or your own drive back the way it was, how it was. So that would include versioning history, folder structure, and sharing permissions if you wanted to do that. Right, so those are all options. I know the versioning history is not an option to change. So if I were to restore these two, files from that day, it would have those versions. But if you did, choose whether or not you want to restore the file share permissions, that's entirely up to you. So you can or you can't, and you can uncheck or check that as you need. Calendars, contacts, and sites, all basically, the same. It's a list format, very simple, gets the job done, not too complicated in terms of structure as needs to put back, but it will recover anything and everything that you might need. I think Drive and Mail are the two greatest focuses that we have, and of course shared drives, and the ability to do more of a point in time feature set in Drive, being that's probably where the majority of any attack or loss or situation may arise, because that's where the data lies. That's where the bulk of the data that people are collaborating on, creating, and working with is going to be. So that is an individual user archive. If we jump into the settings, I know we've gotten questions about this in the past. So what if I don't want to back some things up? What if I only want to back up certain groups of people? Or what if I just want to apply settings across certain groups of people? So you can do that as granularly as an individual, tweaking an individual user settings. You can do it by OU, or you can do it domain-wide. So depending on what you want to set up, you have access to be as granular or as broad with the settings as you like. So whether it's choosing specific applications to back up, allowing auto backup on, which means as users are added to a domain or a specific OU, we would automatically be backing them up. That's entirely up to you. Drive, Mail, and Calendar have retention capabilities if you like. I know a lot of administrators have told me I am only responsible for 3 years, so I only want to back up 3 years. I don't really want to have to deal with anything past the time frame that's been assigned to me by board or any other district requirements. So you can place those in here. You can also remove certain file types. Choose whether you want video, audio, images on or off in Drive. Sometimes people are like, all right, I don't want my student backup being flooded with all these things that probably don't matter, like ISOs and torrented videos or whatever else that you maybe normally come across. We can have them excluded from the backup if you like. And then, of course, how are we going to handle the suspended and deleted accounts? People leave, students leave. What are we going to do with those accounts? You can have them stay around for as long or as little as you like. We do a little bit of separate licensing with archives if it is a large enough number. I think that's on a more case-by-case basis that we can talk about that. But those pricing are typically about 25% or less of the normal licensing cost per user per year, just because it's stagnant data that we're holding on to. It's not something that's being updated regularly. Once you do put a user into a suspended or deleted state in Google, we no longer have access to that account's APIs. So if there is a certain set of past users that you've been holding on to, and you're like, what, SysCloud or whoever can back this up, you do need to reactivate them. We'll pull the backup, and then you can turn them off, delete them, or suspend them again, and then we'll continue to hold their archive. Now, obviously in that situation, when someone is archived and they do not have an account that matches with our archive, you will not, like this person is deleted, right? You will not be able to restore back to Abraham unless you recreated that account. But what you can do is come in here and do a cross-user restore. So let's say you wanted access of the live account to everything in Abraham's account. You just wanted to, put it in someone else's account who is live. Maybe Bruce is you, and you want to create a new folder, be able to go through his backup. You would just restore the new folder in Bruce's account. Cross-user restores can only be done within the same domain. They cannot be cross-domain accomplished. So if it's not to the right account, maybe you just need to restore it to a shell and share with the new account that's on a separate domain. There's definitely some workarounds, but we've seen this be very helpful in terms of being able to pull old users' data for whatever reason and take a look. Or if simply someone leaves and someone new takes their place and you have to transfer all of the old person's data into the new person's account and they need access to that stuff in order to do their job. This is a very easy way to transition that data. Let's see what else. So we do have reports on backup health, but that's already shown on the dashboard. We have restore and export reports. I think this is the area that would show exactly what's going on with any restores and exports that you've initiated. You'll be able to see them probably kick off. You would be able to see the progress, and then of course, come back here to see when they've been completed as well. But otherwise, that is the long and short of the backup in general. It's a very short overview. It, covers as much as possible. I am not sure. I know I was trying to see if we have I don't think it's up yet, a Google Classroom account available to show. Yeah, I don't think we have it at this time, but it is something that's coming. Oh, you have it, Ryan?
Well, no, I was going to say I can show a short video, just to give everyone a sense of what we'll be doing and supporting in the very near future. It's something we'll be launching before the end of the calendar year here. So Jake, if you wanted me to share my screen, I could do that quickly.
Yeah, please, if you could talk them through it. Thank you.
That'd be awesome. So let me just share screen here. Jump into this video. I'll make this full screen so everybody can see it. Give me a second. Just have to move the zoom over. What we'll be doing with Google Classroom is, and this is just a short video that we can share with everybody after the presentation, but we'll be supporting the core pieces of the classroom, right? So when you look at Classroom, you have your stream, which is where all of your announcements that teachers post, including any attachments, as well as assignments, do get placed in the stream section. So we'll be backing up entire classrooms, as well as we go through each individual module. You'll be able to see and restore stream, classwork, people, as well as grades and Google Drive. So when a teacher creates a classroom, you have a section of that classroom that's also created in Google Drive. And you'll see here through this quick demo, like Jake talked about, you'll be able to go to any point in time, restore the classroom, how it existed on that date. In the event that a user deletes, let's just say, a grade, maybe a student decides to remove themselves from the classroom, that can create a lot of problems for the teacher. When the student does that, all of the work that they've submitted then gets removed as well. And unfortunately with Classroom, there really is no trash bin. So when something gets removed, it's permanently gone forever, essentially. So we're hoping that this really adds additional value to our education customers, as we know that this is, one of the most widely adopted applications in the education ecosystem with Google. So just wanted to give everyone a real quick overview there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. So yeah, I mean, that is pretty much the rundown overview of everything in terms of backup that we have available at SysCloud right now. Everything again from just a quick review, drive, shared drive, contacts, mail, sites, calendars, groups. And then of course, as an extra module, you can also back up Classroom just the same. So.
Ryan and Jake, we do have a question in the chat there.
Yeah, please.
What sets you apart from competitors like Backupify?
They don't back up Classroom, and we are still our own company. So as much as Backupify, has been in the space for a long time, they're one of those. All right, I'll just be honest. I have a history of Backupify in terms of bringing a lot of customers over. Some of the things that I've had to help people out with has been as simple as I've asked for an invoice for 4 months and never got an invoice. And so now I'm switching to you because they ignore me. To the service is just, I haven't been helped. I get put into a queue for weeks and then I don't get information back, all the way to, a massive school district called me, and in a week they purchased our solution. I've never seen someone switch, backups that fast in my 6-7 years. And I said, hey, who did you come from and what happened? They were just like, Backupify lost our data. And so I've heard this enough, and I don't mean to speak ill of another competitor, but when you've heard it enough from other districts that I care about and actually work with on a regular basis and hear that these situations were happening, I would just say, look, even if it's not SysCloud, just not Backupify. And as bad as that may sound, that's just, these are the situations that I've heard of. So that's what sets us apart, right?
Yeah,
You're getting the individual help. You're getting assigned an individual customer success person. We have the track record where I can drop any number of school names and ask them. I'm happy to give out many names. We're not perfect, but we will definitely do our absolute best to make sure that everything, goes smoothly according to plan, especially when you most need it. So go ahead, Ryan.
No, I think, Jake, just to elaborate on what you were saying, we just really pride ourselves on customer success, right? And like Jake talked about, our goal is to provide as much support. In working with SysCloud, you get unlimited support as part of your contract. You get a dedicated customer success manager that's going to work with you the entire time. And that's really what we focus on. In addition to that, we're definitely entrenched in the education industry. 90% of our customers are K-12 school districts. It's one of the biggest reasons we're in the process of launching Classroom. So our goal is to continue to innovate and continue to support applications that are going to be important to our education customers. So just wanted to emphasize a couple of those things as well.
Sure. And we did have a question about pricing. So I'm sharing my screen here to point you to where you can actually get the pricing. We have this listed in the ESUCC marketplace. And if you've never been in the marketplace before, please reach out to me. I'll direct you on how to get there. But if you go up to supplier sites and down to SysCloud, it'll take you into the store that those items are listed. If you simply hit search, once you hit search on the left-hand side, scroll down where it says manufacturer and view more, and you'll see SysCloud. If you check that box, it's going to list the two SKUs that we have listed for Google Backup and Office 365. Click into one of those, and you'll see the pricing listed there. So you would choose either 3-year or 1 year. So we have it listed as staff and students. So we do differentiate between the two. So that's how you get to it. You put your numbers in that you want backed up and add those to your cart, submit that. And once that's submitted, it gets approved within your district. Once it's approved, then Jake and Ryan will receive a copy of that order then. So.
Yep, absolutely. And so if any orders do come through, now I think the most that we'll send in return is just a 3-year agreement on our paper that will reflect, just because once we get that signature from you, as much as the order, the PL will go through Craig, the signature will come from us. And what that allows us to do, having a signature on file for any 3-year agreement, is to onboard you now immediately and you will get the first 6 months essentially free up and through July 1. We will not ask for billing, we will not ask for payment until July 1, so that it lines up with the typical buy schedule for most districts, at least, that we are understanding that they go off of, right, for their purchasing cycle. But you'll be fully covered from, I mean, if you bought today, we onboard you today or tomorrow, and you'll be covered all the way through July 1, 2022, free. And then your first year starts of actual paid service.
Sure. If you need Jake's contact information, if you log into the marketplace and click on the SysCloud logo, it pulls up his contact information. We have that listed there. So you can give Jake a call direct if you have questions there. So just kind of how to get back to his contact info. Or
Absolutely.
you can reach out to myself. I'll send it to you also.
Yeah, and I also put my email in the chat. If anyone just wants to shoot me a note, I can also set up times to speak individually with anyone who would like. I have no problem taking the time to do that, as you know, there may be custom environments or other serious situations where maybe you would also like to take a look at some of the safety, security, and compliance features. That is not part of the group agreement, but we, if you were to do both, we all offer discounts on that just as well, and can easily match the cost basis in discount that we've given. I may need to create another SKU in certain situations with Craig to do that, and I'll let him know as soon as someone requests, of course. But that is also an option. User gets suspended in the Google admin console. We retain them updated.
I was just trying to help
Okay.
answer a question that Noel had there.
Okay.
Just I don't know if we
Great,
missed
Noel.
that at the end. I just want to make sure that we got that in there before we finished up. So I hope that helps, Noel.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, is there any other questions anyone else had, or any other concerns or comments?
Another question, do you have to purchase every staff member, or can you purchase X number of licenses and apply to what staff members you want to back up? So
yeah, that's entirely up to you. Obviously, we recommend doing everybody, just because if you're not talking about admins, you're talking about teachers, not talking about teachers and admins, teachers, student data, the whole reason why a school exists, right? And then admins, the whole backbone of how a school exists. So we recommend everybody, but if you did want to start with just a smaller user group, we can absolutely do that and then expand accordingly if you want to test that out first. But we don't give any requirements for that. That's up to you.
any other questions? You're more than welcome to unmute and ask your questions also. Question is, how do you apply? Who gets a license? By OU?
So,
or?
Typically, we're going to do it by OU. If you don't have it in OUs, it's a little bit more of a tedious process, but you can give us a list, right? If you wanted to do it in list format, but we can start back up. Let me share my screen real quick again. Hopefully go through, but when you do click on start backup, you can do the entire domain or selected users and teams. And then what this is going to allow you to do, if it wasn't fully protected, there would be a hyperlink here that says choose OUs, and you could pick specific OUs with specific people in them and add those to the backup to then fill up your license count that you had purchased. So.
Any other questions? We got another one. There says, our staff, both Office and Google accounts, do we license per user or per account? So
we license per account. So it's going to be, I think it was whatever the cost is in the agreement, it would be per user per cloud. Now, if you are doing both, we're happy to extend a further discount. Maybe even create something custom with Craig, especially if we're talking about backing up everyone. And we can do that offline for sure. But yeah, it would be per user per cloud.
And then our suspended users counted towards your total license count. So
no, they're not.
Unless you back them up.
Right. Those would be a separate line item, right, Ryan?
Yeah, typically what we do is upon your renewal, right? We review your active versus suspended and deleted users, and you have the option to set retention policies to purge those users out. Or if you want to keep them for a long period of time, there'd be a significantly reduced cost to keep them. Obviously we incur the cost to continue to store the users, but there isn't the daily computing of taking new backups. So, that's something we would work out with you at the point of renewal. Yeah.
And then there's a question about, is it a separate cost for Google Classroom?
Yes. So I think we're starting with $3 per teacher or user that needs to be covered per year. That's 25% off what the retail is probably going to stick at. So if we need to put a line item for that as well, sure, we could work with you, Craig. I know we're throwing up a lot more line items here in this call, but yes, that is a separate add-on.
And the classroom cost will just be per staff. There isn't going to be a cost per student there.
Correct.
Any other questions? Wanted to know, do you have any antivirus rootkit scans?
Oh, that's a question. I mean, we are audited by Grant Thornton. I think it's SSA 18 and SOC audited like regularly. I don't know if that helps kind of answer the question. Or are you talking about like us scanning for things on your environment, or because we do that to a degree, but I mean, we'll find things that are malicious executables. We'll find things, but that's more of a. I think Ryan, you can speak to that in terms of backup data insights, and where we're at with that. But
yeah, we have another component of our technology that can scan your backups each day for threats of ransomware, sensitive data, unauthorized sensitive data exposure, things like that. And but like Jake said, we are SOC 2 type 2 compliant. Anyone that would like access to the reports, we just typically require a non-disclosure agreement, but that is information that we can also share over to you.
if that didn't answer your question, whoever asked that, please just email me and we'll get more details for you. That's no problem.
Okay, any further questions? If not, I appreciate the time, Jake and Ryan, for presenting this to our schools. And I think, this is, like we've discussed in the past, timely with some of the things going on in Nebraska and liability insurance requirements for school districts and some of those requirements for some air gap backups and so forth. So I appreciate your time. And if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to myself or contact Jake or Ryan directly if you need to. Jake's information is in the marketplace again, so you can access it there, or shoot myself an email and we'll get you that contact information. If you need to visit with him one-on-one about other technical issue, specifications of this backup, I would recommend that you reach out directly to them because I'm not going to have that information. So appreciate the time, and we look forward to hopefully seeing some orders flow through here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Craig, for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, if anyone wants one-on-ones, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm available and happy to answer any and all questions.
I do have a couple more here.
Oh, okay, great.
How often do they do snapshots? So how often?
Yep. Yeah, so the snapshots are once a day. Bring it back up if I can. So I know they usually run 3x. We can do the same. Most people are okay with the 1x, but if that is a requirement in your decision making, between us or another competitor, we're happy to provide 3 times a day, 8-hour rolling periods as needed. So that's no problem and no extra cost for that.
Then also on a restore, approximately how long does it take for that restore. So if you had a 10 gig drive that needed to be restored, what would be the approximate time of the restore?
Ryan, do you have any benchmarking ideas for like a 10 gig? I know usually they kick off pretty quickly, and it's usually based on like if there's a massive amount of files in that 10 gig, it'll take longer versus
Yeah,
like
it depends on,
couple.
not just the number of files, the size of file, but also the complexity of the structure, right? So like if we're restoring Google Drive and there's a fairly sophisticated folder structure that we're putting back in place, that can impact it, but we can definitely, share some benchmarking over to you guys, or whoever has that specific question. If you just want to reach out to us directly, we can get you more specifics.
All right. Any other questions? Last call.
Greg, it's
Yep.
been a question about Google File Stream. So I have users with File Stream. If their machine gets ransomware, it will find, looks for that file stream and start encrypting files in the cloud. Now you're doing what kind of connection between Google Workspace and your solution? If it identifies that files are starting to be encrypted on the Google side, is that connection broken, or will it progress over to your side and start encrypting on your side?
So I think it won't encrypt anything that we have already. What it does is
correct. That's
basically, basically what we're doing, right, is we're pulling whatever the latest version of whatever that file is. So even if we do pull over some of the encrypted stuff and you see it on our side, you just go to the previous day or whatever, day that you're like, oh, okay, here's where the attack started. We'll go to the day previous, restore the versions and file history from that day, and then point forward our backups would, then reflect normally. So
yeah, that's why this is a good solution. I mean, file stream, you got file stream, you're still not, you're not protected. You got it in the cloud. So,
right.
But all right, that was my question. Thank you.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Any others? All right. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks Jake and Ryan. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Be well.
Bye. Thank you.